It is the Locked On Big 12 Roundtable. This week, it is Josh Neighbors, myself, Drake Toll, and Jonathan Davis. Two of the biggest homers on our entire network have joined me tonight. These two guys love their respective schools, Baylor and Texas. Will be giving thoughts on their big contest this week and also talking about some college football playoff expansion as well. That's coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Locked On Big 12 Roundtable. Quick note from me, guys. Make sure you all subscribe to the channel. We are pushing to 2,000 as fast as we can. So subscribe. We need to get that up to 2,000. Come on, folks. Push it.
Let's go.
Push it. Let's do it.
It's free, man. I promise.
It's free content. 5+ days a week. We're in your feed on YouTube, giving you Big 12, conference realignment, college football playoff, game breakdowns, all that kind of stuff. All right, Drake Toll is here. Jonathan Davis is here. Locked On Baylor. Locked On, what is it, Longhorns? Here's the problem, guys.
You know what it is. Locked On Longhorns.
Here's the problem. Some of the shows are like Locked On Bears. So, like our friend Jake Hatch is Locked On Cougars, right?
Yeah.
Like it's because he got a cease and desist from BYU.
Locked On Longhorns.
Locked On Longhorns. Locked On Baylor. All right. So, guys, we got the news last week. The college football playoff was expanding. I mean, better late than never, I guess. I thought the best part of this was when I think it was Ross Dellinger went to our old friend Bob Bowlesby, old commissioner of the Big 12, and was like, what do you think about this? And he's just like, what am I supposed to think about this? Kind of rolled his eyes and said negotiating this stuff with the conference commissioners was absolute hell. But really, Drake, I saw Dave Aranda commented on this today. I mean, this is so dumb. We had to wait for this long.
It was inevitable. At some point, this had to happen. When you bring a playoff to 4 teams, it's not sustainable to do it for decades. It's killing college football in that, look at bowl attendances across the board. The Rose Bowl is at all-time low attendance. No one cares about bowl games anymore. I had talked about this on my show yesterday. It's all about revenue at this point, and they're losing so much revenue in these New Year's 6 bowl games that don't matter near as much. I was at Baylor and Georgia in 2019. There were like 15 people there. The janitorial staff outnumbered the fans that were there. Why would they care? Georgia wanted to be in the college football playoff. Baylor wanted the same. Both those teams had those aspirations, and when you don't make it, people stop caring. They don't want to travel when you don't have a national title on the line. So it's a new era of college football with the playoff. If you want to make a lot of money, put 12 teams in it. That adds 8 new games in the late season. Does it add more parity to college football? No. The same 2 teams are going to win it every damn year. But who cares? Now you get more games and people actually have an opportunity to play for a national championship.
Thank you. People have been saying this stuff like, look at the same teams. It doesn't really matter. But Jonathan, the weird part about all of this is you go back to the move for Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC when it was announced. And that's when all this started. And I'm not saying it's their fault. I actually don't think it's their fault at all. But the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten, in response to this move, initially they didn't seek out more teams, which they all should have. They didn't look to, kind of make the next move. What they all did together was they formed a block and they decided to vote against expansion for reasons that are, Jim Phillips mentioned we didn't have a 365-day calendar. What does that mean? I don't know. I've got no clue what that means at all. There's some issue with the transfer portal, NIL, and all that stuff. But isn't it odd to think Texas and OU to the SEC informed the decision to block it at first? And it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense at all. And look, I'm all for the 12-team playoff. Anything that gives Texas a better chance of returning to glory. Look, I'm all for it, right? But right. I mean, like Drake said, it's long overdue, right? Anything that is going to keep fans invested late into the season. And look, we know that the championship for the next 4 years might look like Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, insert team here. Right. But either way, look, 4 teams is not sustainable. And then every year you're going to have a snub at 5, a snub at 6, maybe a team at 7 that should have got in. At least now with 12, look at the 13th team in the country wants to raise hell. Like, shut up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
12
right,
teams,
right.
it's like
win one more game. Win one more game.
Yeah, thank you.
Exactly,
Right. So
right.
this was long overdue. It's good for college football. It's going to keep fans invested, longer in the season. It's going to give us more meaningful games. And all the talk about the regular season not being as important now. Look, I don't buy into it. The 12-team playoff is going to be good for college football. And they're already moving towards, the players are moving towards professional. They're getting away from the amateurism anyway. So it made sense to go towards a professional style playoff. And so college football is finally on the right track.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You hit the nail on the head. It doesn't kill the regular season because you know what does? A 14 playoff. Here's why. Utah just lost to Florida. They're not going to the playoff. Their next 11 games don't matter. Now you're killing the regular season by not giving a team a mulligan. The NFL, you can lose 8 games and still win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying college football.
Drake, it's a good point. Also to his other point, right? Like the NFL, when they added the extra wild card, they're not like, you know what, there's one more team worthy of winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
No, it's because they want more games. It's because they want more games. Not because they think the Bears can make it at 7 and 8.
Right. And more money. And you get that in college football now. It's the idea that, hey, my team lost a game. We can still show up to the stadium because they could still go to the playoff. If your team, Utah loses to Florida, well, there's your season. That sucks. That's why people don't show up anymore. On top of that, look at the kids from number 7 Florida any given year. They're like, man, I'm a first round draft pick at D tackle. I'm not playing in the Rose Bowl or the whatever.
Hit Michigan State last year.
Oh, dude, 100%. That goes away. Now those 2 teams are playing for a national championship and all their guys show up. Not only that, your first 4 games, your 8 play-in games are going to be really good matchups. Last year, Ole Miss and Oklahoma State would have been an awesome game. Or your Notre Dame versus Pitt. Those are really good matchups that you now bring into a scenario where they can vie for a title. Why wouldn't you do that?
Right. And here's the argument I've kept hearing is about, oh, you're sacrificing excellence for the sake of access. Well, we all know the same teams are going to be there, but here's the thing is like when your product it's not stale, but when we can expect something that's the same at the top every year, like this only helps because look, it's 6 automatic bids. Yeah. Guys, ostensibly speaking, like you could recruit at Tulsa and being like, look, if we rip off 11 wins at Tulsa or, and we win the conference title, like the Golden Hurricane are going to the playoff, people. I mean, Coastal Carolina, those degenerates down in Myrtle Beach could be like, if we go 12-0, we're going to a college football playoff. Think about the amount of access and the cool stories it creates. You know what? Your excellence crap, save it. We're still going to get those games. Also, we're going to get those games anyway. Sure. Ohio State and Michigan on the weekend might not mean as much, but you're going to tell me those teams, Jonathan, are just going to punt because, the game, they're both in. Oh, so somebody's going to give ground at Ohio State and Michigan because they're both making the playoffs. BS. They're both still going to play hard. They're both still going to go at it. I don't think those sure, the stakes don't mean as much, but like the games are still going to be good. Nobody's going to start trying less hard on rivalry weekend because of that playoff stuff. I just don't see that happening.
And when we talk about like college football, what separates college football from the NFL is the passion in these rivalries and these big games. And these head coaches are still defined by what they do in these big games, right? Like Jim Harbaugh can't just go out there and just say, well, I'm just going to punt on the Ohio State game, just lose to Ohio State because we're going to get ready for the playoffs, right? If you're talking about like an NFL team or something, down the stretch, if they have a playoff spot locked up or anything like that, they're going to start resting starters. The product is going to be less, not as great because they're getting ready for the playoffs. In college football, you can't do that, right? Like you have to still.
Because here's the thing too. If you were to lose that rivalry game and then lose your conference title game, I mean, back-to-back losses, you're probably not in, right?
Yeah. And so, you still have to approach it like I have to win every game. And then, like you said, Ohio State is never going to go out there against Michigan and give less than 110% effort and vice versa. In any of these big games, and typically you see these bigger rivalry games towards the end of the year. And like I said, head coaches are still going to be, judged on what they do in these rivalry games as opposed to what they do in a 12-team playoff. Because like we said, we still believe the creme de la creme, the top of the top, the Alabamas and the Georgias, and then 2 is way down here.
Right.
They're going to be where they're going to be. And so like you said, I don't think it affects the regular season at all. I think that these games are still going to be as competitive, and I don't think that the mantra that's being thrown out that you're sacrificing excellence for access is necessarily true.
Drake,
the people that are out there that are like, oh, I don't want to see Georgia beat Coastal Carolina by 40. I do. You're the psychopath. I do want to see that. Right. That is it's college football, and it shuts up the little schools, the UCFs, that think they can win the national title. They get boat raced by 35. I like that. Give it to me every year.
The next part of this we have to hit on is, so we had the news of this, the expansion. We also have the news of the Big 12 with their entering negotiations for TV deals. And Jonathan, I actually have not been able to talk to you about, Texas related stuff since then. It sounds like the door is now open for OU and Texas to leave a little bit earlier. Would you like to see that, or do you still think Texas needs? You still want to kind of get a little more time in the Big 12 to kind of get themselves primed and ready to go, kind of help those recruiting classes along before you. Because here's the thing, like we saw it last year in the Arkansas game. Like Arkansas is not this top tier SEC team, but like still there was a big difference.
Were that day.
Yeah, but at the line of scrimmage there was a big difference, right? And we have a year right now where Texas is playing 2 and maybe even 3 at times freshmen in the offensive line. So like, what do you want to see with the conference realignment piece kind of as we head? Because with the TV deal now and also with the college football playoff, like that kind of with the 6 AQs, that kind of guarantees the Big 12 now has value, right? If the Big 12 winner every year is going to be in the playoff, like it's kind of secure, which means the TV contract is going to be worth something, which means it's kind of time to start seeing Texas and OU out and figure out the best way to get everybody in the right position as we head forward. So do you want to see the early exit, or do you want some more time to kind of foster the roster, get some more guys in, all that stuff?
Well, although, playing in the Big 12 may be a little bit easier than playing in the SEC where it just means more.
Depending on what you just as a Missouri graduate, I know it just means so much more, man. It just
means more. Look, the Big 12, they already know we're leaving. They know Texas and Oklahoma are leaving. They're salty. Mike Gundy is saying, we did it for the money and, whatever. Look, we're salty. Look, I was texting a friend today, and she was telling me that, look, she was in a relationship. She's no longer in a relationship, but that person had nowhere to go. And so, unfortunately, she's staying with her now. And you can imagine how awkward that situation is. But look, it's the same situation, but Texas and Oklahoma, we have somewhere to go. So why are we still sitting around,
that's fair.
waiting to go into the SEC? We have somewhere to go. They know we're leaving. The Big 12 is already a little salty. Look, Baylor done won the conference in football. Kansas done won the conference in basketball. You don't need Texas and Oklahoma, right? Let us go. So, but on a serious note, look, I would love for us to stay in the Big 12 and get a couple conference championships on the way out. But, it's time to go to the SEC.
Drake, is somebody who's currently covering a Big 12. Like, he brings up the Mike Gundy point, and I thought Mike Gundy kind of made a pretty good point. Like, even if they're still in the league, like they shouldn't really be in the meetings about the future of the league. I mean, I know it might be irrelevant, but like, especially now the new commissioner, maybe there could be some relevant tactical things being talked about in that perspective. Just kind of, what do you want to see as the guy who covers the Baylor Bears?
I am of a different school of thought than even Mike Gundy. Really, it to me feels like Brett Yormark is not going to back down from anybody. And having Texas and Oklahoma in those conversations is not something where those universities can step on the other Big 12 schools. I think it's so old at this point. This isn't a he said, she said, let's make this dramatic. It's more of a, okay, here are the top 2 schools in both marketing and revenue in the entire Big 12. What can we learn from them before they're out the door? You need to put in your 2-week severance and give us an idea of, okay, how do we move forward without you, and how do we build our schools to have the same revenue that you do? Brett Yormark's a businessman. This is not personal to him whatsoever. It's personal to Mike Gundy. It's personal to these other Big 12 head coaches. For Yormark and company, who cares? They're leaving. Let's use those resources while we have them right now. I don't mind Texas or OU being in these meetings. I don't think their vote really carries so much weight. I don't think they want their votes to carry weight. I don't think Texas is in meetings with the Big 12 trying to dominate the room. They couldn't care less. They're leaving. People are just trying to get their panties in a wad and build dramatic things and headlines out of nothing. Those 2 schools being in these meeting rooms, whether they are or they aren't, has zero effect on the everyday college football fan. And most of these schools just don't really care by now.
Do you think the recent news, though, kind of like with the television stuff and the CFP stuff, makes it more inevitable that they leave earlier? They don't stay until 25.
Yeah, it should. I mean, the revenue. Yeah. The uptick in revenue at that point, you're going to be making so much more money that money's not an issue. Not that it ever was.
And also, like,
but
they're going to have to pay on the way out too, right? I mean, they're going to have to.
Yeah.
There's money on the way out.
And it's not. It's even less an issue now than it was. So just go at this point.
Right. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, just saying deuces.
Yeah, I was going to say goodbye. All right, there you go. Yeah.
All right. Nice.
All right. So your two teams, also, the reason that you guys are on really too, your two teams play in what I think are two of the more compelling non-conference games of the entire season, for different reasons. So let's go to Jonathan first on this. All right. So Texas plays Alabama this week. This one it's a helmet game. It is cool to see Texas play Alabama. I believe this was the first pick in the television draft. I think Fox had the first pick and they picked this game. They're putting the full weight of Big Noon Saturday behind it. But I just think out of all, Jonathan, there's just a legitimate curiosity. Nobody thinks Texas is going to win, but just to see like this group up against an Alabama, I think just that there's maybe even call it morbid curiosity to see it happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of curiosity about this game, and Texas fans will love to hear that. They love bragging about how relevant we are, so I love to hear that we were the first pick in the television draft, right? I guess that's another offseason award, but no, I mean when you look at I don't know when you when you look at the game, yeah, it's very interesting. There's a lot of very interesting components. You have Sark, Jeff Banks, and Kyle Flood, who all came from Alabama, and then you have Jaleel Billingsley, Jai Hall, and Keelan Robinson, who transferred from Alabama on the player side. And then you have, Bijan Robinson, who's one of the best players in the country, but you have Quinn Ewers, who's one of the most talked about quarterbacks in the country. And this is only his second start, but his first real test, with his first start coming against Louisiana Monroe. So there's a lot of very interesting, aspects to this game. And then you talked about it. It's a helmet game, two blue bloods in college football, Alabama and Texas. And we know that the last time they played was when Colt McCoy threw two passes in a national championship game because he wanted to preserve his storied backup NFL career. But he's still making money, so shout out to him. But that's the last time they played, and Texas has been downhill since then. And I think Alabama's lost 17 games total since then. So two complete different trajectories, but it's going to be fun on Saturday when Texas matches up against Alabama and DKR.
One thing to mention too is, the last two. Saban lost to two former assistants last year, which is really interesting. But also, Sark has been very open. I think Chris Lowe had at the ESPN, but he owes a lot of his. Sark owes his career currently to Nick Saban, right? I'll never forget when Lane Kiffin took the FAU job, and it was like, oh my God, poor Steve Sarkisian has not coached anything. He's been an analyst, whatever, but he has to go and call plays in national title game against, I think was it Clemson? Was it that was they playing? I think in that one. And it was just like, oh my God, what a really difficult situation for him to be put in. But I also feel bad, Jonathan, because people kind of been taking some of the comments Sark has made out of context about the culture thing. And you made the comment about the better culture. In context, that comment was about I just hope we have a strong culture this week. And our guys are not concerned about being individuals, but playing as a team. Very much a Nick Saban idea. So I think some of the comments he's maybe have been taken out of context. I also think for him, he's probably the most nervous person about all of this, just because of all the stuff surrounding him. And this is an important game for him. And actually, I think there's a certain element wanting to make Nick Saban proud and kind of almost justify the second chance that the greatest coach of all time gave him in some ways.
Yeah, so I talked to Chris Gordy about it, and then like you said, his comments where he said, I think a strong culture can beat talent. Just a lot of people made waves about Kirby Smart saying that Dan Lanning will never say that Georgia has better players than Oregon, but they do,
funny.
Right?
It's so funny,
right? So I think Steve Sarkisian is just kind of stating the obvious, right? Obviously Alabama has better players, but if we have a strong culture, we go into this game and believe we can win. Stranger things have happened. And then Chris Gordy talked about how he didn't love how Sark came out and basically said this game doesn't mean anything because we're trying to win the Big 12 championship. And I don't know if he was conceded defeat or what, but right. I think that ultimately, I think Sark is going to put 110% of his resources into trying to win this game. And I think that the players are going to be ready to try to win this game. So like you said, I think a lot are being made out of his comments, although they may have not been the best said. I think that he meant well by them. And then, like you said, Sark went to the coaching rehabilitation program at Alabama, right? And so, maybe there's an element of wanting to make Nick Saban proud, but I really think it's just more about, Sark is established as a play caller, but he's nowhere near established as a head coach, right? He's never won double-digit games in a season. He's coming off of 5 wins at his first season at Texas. So I think more important than making Nick Saban proud is making the people that signed his checks proud, right? And making himself proud. And so I think he has a lot of expectations. I've talked with John Garcia many times about this may be Sark's last big job if he can't figure it out at Texas. And so he has to figure it out. And this is his chance to make a statement to the world on Saturday. So I think more than anything, as far as impressing Nick Saban, it's about showing the world that he's a capable head coach. And you do that by beating teams like Alabama.
I think some of his comments also were based in the fact, he coached there. People guys, he coached there. He knows what's there. He knows what they have. He knows what he knows what it means to start 2 freshmen on the line against these guys. I think that's why he made a comment about the Big 12 title. So maybe obviously the most marquee, maybe non-conference matchup anywhere, right? Between that and Notre Dame, Ohio State. Let's go now to my favorite non-conference game of the entire season. BYU hosts Baylor this weekend, Drake Toll, in a game that is absolutely fascinating for so many reasons. It's a game we're going to start seeing on a yearly basis coming up here pretty soon, right? Or essentially a yearly basis. I mean, there's a whole lot in the line here. I think for both these schools, look at BYU wants to be BYU has a schedule this year where if they were to somehow magically run the table, they'd be a CFP team just because of how good the schedule is. If they want to have any chance of that, it has to be a game like this. And also I think Baylor, same thing. If they want to win, potentially go to a CFP this year, they have to win this game too. But I think it's also a whole lot of discovery for Baylor, right? There's a whole lot of unknown. I know they played a good game against Albany, still a whole lot of unknown, and great place to prove it on a Saturday night in Provo, Utah.
It's weird to say in week 2 as well, but this is the difference for BYU in 11-1 or 8-4. This is the difference for Baylor in 11-1 and 8-4. Whoever wins this game is on a trajectory the rest of their season set up for success in a gauntlet of a schedule. Both these teams are going to play really daunting squads. BYU's old, not just Oklahoma State old. They're you're Mormon. You went on a 2-year mission. Now you're 24 years old. I'm scouting out their backup running back. He's 24 with a wife, like a redshirt sophomore, and he's playing backup running back for BYU. It's that is the level of old they are. And Baylor's a squad with an offensive line returning 4 or 5 guys that they've got to play well on the road. Siaki Ika, who's from Utah, is going to play well on the road. Dave Aranda has coached with half the BYU staff. Jeff Grimes, OC, Eric Mateos, offensive line coach, were stolen from Kalani Sitake at BYU to come to Baylor. So many crossovers and storylines in this game that I'm struggling to keep up with it all this week. But the winner of this one is on a great path to have a lot of success late in the year and make a big bowl game. The loser could find themselves not squandering a solid season, but still falling to 8-4, despite not truly being an 8-4 team if you line up every game on a neutral site. So a lot at stake in this one. It's a 9 p.m. Central Time game.
Love that.
Oh, brutally late. The place is going to be packed out in the mountains. I will have had so many drinks, non-alcoholic to be exact, in Provo.
But Drake, I have to say, as a Locked On Big 12 host, I like this as a potential preview of Big 12 After Dark in the future, right? We've talked about the Pac-12 having that time slot so much. This is the chance the Big 12 to show what they can deliver with a future conference game at a 10 p.m. slot. That's a whole heck of a lot better than Wazoo and UCLA.
Yeah, and then you wake up at 1 a.m. You're like, the game's still on, which happens to me constantly.
It's a top 25 game happening right now. That's what you have to do here.
Now it's a huge game, and it's going to put on display for the country. This is what the new Big 12 is. It's a huge brand game for Brett Yormark and company because this is not Texas, Oklahoma. This is going to be one of the bigger games each season if both these teams stay as good as they are. Another big part of this, too, is BYU ready to play in the Big 12. They got killed by Baylor last year. 38-24 really wasn't the true tale of that game either. Baylor just stomped on the neck in the second half, and Kalani Sitake said it in the postgame. They were bigger, faster, stronger. We couldn't do anything against that team. So how did they get bigger, faster, and stronger in the offseason enough to play in the Big 12? especially at home, like BYU. Here is your top 10 win on a platter at your place. Go take it. And if you don't, that's not good for you for the rest of this season. And if you're Baylor, this could skyrocket you to a 10-win season again.
I think this is my thought. I think this game could be a loss for Baylor, but also the perfect learning loss that shows them like, okay, we know what we have to fix, and now we can go on our best. I mean, I think win or lose, it's a great opportunity for them. I'm so pumped. But guys, I just have to mention this generally to both of you all. Like, wire to wire this weekend, thanks to both of your all's teams and other teams as well, we have such a good Big 12 slate. We have Kansas State and Missouri going alongside with obviously Alabama and Texas happening at noon. We have Texas Tech and Houston. That one's happening, I believe, at like 4 o'clock. We have Iowa State versus Iowa, obviously a great trophy game happening there. That's happening like I think it's the same time. We have got the first Big 12 game of the year. Kansas beat the hell out of somebody last week, and they're going to a wounded animal in West Virginia. They could be on the road making something happen there. We've got Oklahoma State ASU, and we have BYU. Like this is a damn good slate. Y'all know how normally week 2 is like kind of the down week. Jonathan, let me tell you something, man. Our conference delivering in week 2. All right, SEC right here. Our conference right here delivering in week number 2.
The Big 12, where it just means more.
It just means a little bit more this week. Apparently, this week it just means more, except for Texas, Alabama. That one just means more generally. But Drake, great slate this week.
Yeah, you bottle it up. This is pristine. You're right. Week 2 is usually where your big games, like your Georgia, Oregon last week. Now both of those teams will play an FCS school or somebody random. Right. But the Big 12 was like, screw that. We'll have 2 good weeks of games, except for Baylor, who played Albany last week, which was terrible, by the way. So now you get but they did score 69. Epic. Missing the extra point, the final extra point. The 6th-year senior kicker, too. On purpose, 100%. Legendary guy. And now you get a week 2 slate. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be on a flight to Provo. This is the one weekend. I've never done this before. Never done this. Disclosing. Bought Wi-Fi on a plane. I'm going to do it this weekend because there's so many good games on, especially Texas and Alabama. I think I have Texas covering at least the first half. Remember that 2019 LSU game? That LSU team won the national championship.
Yeah,
Texas gave them all they could handle that season.
Talk to him, Draco. Talk to him.
That was an awesome game.
Watch out. They're going to fire me.
I do not think they cover, I'll be honest. I think they have to win the turnover battle to cover, and they probably won't do that. So I don't like their chances to do it. I'm sorry, Jonathan. All right.
I'm not the one playing on Saturday.
All right. All right, guys. Time for plugs. Jonathan, where can people find you and your work and all of its variety?
They can find me at Locked On Horns. That's the professional Twitter. You can find me at Johnzo Ball. That's the personal Twitter. And, of course, you can find Locked On Longhorns wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and support the channel. Thank you. Hook 'em.
Drake.
At Locked On Baylor on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube, by the way. It's like 666 subscribers today. Can't have that, guys. This is Baylor. We can't have the school. We got
actually, it's not nice for you all, not for the Christians.
Either somebody unsubscribe or like multiple people subscribe today, please. Also at Inside SI's Inside the Bears on Twitter as well, or InsideTheBears.com. All kinds of Baylor coverage there. I will be in Provo this week, updating everyone on Baylor, BYU, Baptist, Mormons.
All right. So that's great about the Christianity thing. Also, congratulations on your SI stuff now. Very proud of you for that.
Thanks.
We're getting you off. You're at 655. So I just put you at 656. So not a bad number to be at. All right. I just gave you a sub for the Locked On Big 12. You guys can find me on Twitter at LO Big 12. Find me personally at Josh Neighbors _. You guys can find us on YouTube. Just look up Locked On Big 12. Once again, help us reach the subscriber. We're looking for 2,000 by the end of September. Also, if you guys want to make picks against us, against the spread, go to CBS Sports today, look up Locked On Big 12 and their college sports pick'em, and the password is Big 12, no spaces, no caps, and you guys can, for free, join our player pool. Once again, called Locked On Big 12 is the group under CBS Sports college football pick'em. It's in the fantasy category. Password is Big 12, BIG12, no space, no caps. And you guys can play for prizes. Top three people will get a prize pack courtesy of the folks here at Locked On. Had a great week last week. You guys, top 3 winners will be in line for a prize. Make sure you guys do that. Gentlemen, Drake, Jonathan, it was a pleasure. Talk to you guys very soon. And best of luck to both your teams this weekend.
Look 'em Bears.